This is Bricks and Clicks, where Cliff Hudson and Craig Miller explore the real conversations and innovative strategies with industry leaders behind transforming legacy brands for long-term sustainable growth in the digital age.
Welcome to Bricks and Clicks. It's a pleasure to be with you again, here with my friend and former co-worker, Craig Miller. Glad to be with him today. And we have a guest with us who I'll introduce in a few minutes. Our guest is James Junkin, who has a tremendous executive and operating experience that I think will be very helpful in kind of bringing some things to light in our discussion today. Topic for this week is new digital plumbing. And so the question comes up, of course, about why new digital plumbing and why is that the topic it is. I suspect that most companies, and they see the pace with which technology changes, the need for updating is pretty constant. But one of the things that Craig and I notice with companies that we deal with is that in many cases, not only is the technology perhaps dated, but it may have been built by someone who had a different expectation than a current lead executive may have today, with the understanding of the need for interface with consumers and the need for a digital framework that interfaces with them, particularly as to the extent that they're retail customers and the opportunity that's there. A digital plumbing setup that needs to integrate well with that same framework. So how does that fit into today's discussion? Well, we're going to talk quite a bit about, as we have in our prior podcasts, about that customer interface and the critical role of new digital plumbing and the difficulty of building it. James Junkin comes to us today as an individual really singularly with a highly developed set of experiences in restaurant operations, years of operating with multiple brands, but also one of the more fascinating things, I think, in terms of the implementation of this new digital framework that we put in place at Sonic. James was there before that was developed. He was there during the process, actually assisted with defining the architecture and the framework that we needed. He was part of the answer, the solution for implementation, and now he has been with Sonic several years, utilizing that same digital plumbing and the digital framework in the operation of his business. He's not a passive observer to share an opinion today. He was an active driver of the process as an active user. In addition to that, I think others have looked to him at times for his perspective, and we'll talk about that, some of our comments here today, including some comments he's made in the articles in the Franchise Times about the need for this technology and its impact on his business. So, James, we appreciate you being with us here today. Glad that you're available to talk and glad you're willing to share the depth and the history of your experience. So thanks for making the opportunity.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to be here, Cliff.
Well, we're excited to have you. Let me give the listener a little background about your current operations. And I mentioned a moment ago, you've been with multiple brands, different settings over time, currently operating what I would have called most of my years with Sonic a second generation operator. But in fact, because of the success, the breadth, the depth, the passage of time and engagement of another generation, you're working with a second and third generation Sonic high performance operator from almost any standpoint, high volume, large scale within the system. I really don't know how many stores you all are operating now, James, but something in excess of 300, is it? What's today?
We're at 269.
Okay. So you're getting pretty close to that number then. But high volume, high profit, but also an operator that was continuously innovative over the years. It was James' senior partner, Daryl Rogers, who introduced to me, almost 30 years ago, not quite, perhaps 29, the idea of having an ice cream program, which he had for himself, that once we modified it and rolled it out in the Sonic system, it changed everything for our brand. The Rogers Group, the D.L. Rogers Group, is one of continual innovation over the years. And so it's a particular pleasure to have James on board to talk about this new digital plumbing and what it meant for the D.L. Rogers Group. In some ways, we can go about this a couple of different ways. One of the things that, to the extent you have any general observations up front, we're going to get into some detail about your role in our Technology Advisory Council, your role in implementation of some of the earlier technology like Pays, the pay at your stall, in the earlier part of 2 decades ago. perhaps your earliest reactions as we began talking about this integrated customer engagement idea as much as 15 years ago, and how we would integrate these various things. But Craig and I have both been intrigued by reading your comments in some public press to the extent of the technology is paid for itself, no doubt, and that your food costs have dropped because you're able to manage it differently. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts regarding those. Then we'll probably kind of jump in on your specific engagement, over time, particularly closely working with Craig Miller. But any thoughts there, James?
Yeah, Cliff. Over time, we've always been a big believer in technology. Unfortunately, a lot of it was done in-house before Craig came on board, and we were able to expand through the new POS system and all that we were able to do several years ago. But in that food, we've kind of taken a different step now even further. And it allowed us to really see and manage our food costs on a daily basis. And today we actually can not only manage it daily, we can manage it by shift. We can manage it and understand where that food is coming and going and the losses that we might have, and really be able to identify down the situations that we have that were costing us money. So it's been amazing. Also, with the program that we have today, it also allows for, you're talking about efficiencies, it allows us to have 2 or 3 people doing inventory at the same time, entering that data, even on a smartphone, and then translating over to the web or to the cloud. So it's helped us speed up the process. It's helped us to be much more intuitive about where we're losing products, so that we can then look at where we need to focus our attention instead of the shotgun method. We are now much more of a rifle approach, where you can definitely hone in on what you need to be looking for.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know earlier on you mentioned your approaches earlier before Craig came on board, and then how things shifted. If it's of any interest, the same thing happened with me. I can think about technology in the company pre-Craig and with Craig, and
Yeah.
the difference was considerable. So, kind of going back in that 15 years ago and more to a period of time in which most of the point of sale systems in the Sonic system were not software based. They did not communicate as readily as they might, particularly not in the detail that you're experiencing today by far. And as Craig formed a tech advisory council, now probably in that 08-09 timeframe, as he performed a tech advisory council, or TAC, as you all called it, what your recollections are of that earliest formation, and your not just clearly you're willing to be involved, but what your thoughts were in terms of likelihood of success, impact, payoff, et cetera, to engage that way.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, Cliff, everybody was a little nervous, including myself, just what the cost was going to be and if the payback would be there, as well as we were dealing with, including myself, although I was probably the youngster in the group, from a standpoint of time in the system. People were very engaged with with the old system that was not PC based. And, I felt like there might be some pushback because of that. I think what helped that was 2 things. One, being part of that committee and all of us looking for what was the best long term for the system, and understanding, because of the troubles we were going through, and understanding the technology as fast as it moves, that the system that we were with didn't have that ability.
Yeah.
So it was a little nervous in the beginning because mainly of the cost and would it pay back. But after we got into it and understood all that we were going to have and the abilities that it brought to us, I think that it really eased most of our nerves on the TAC.
Did the earlier experience we'd have with the implementation of technology, and I'm thinking very narrow and specifically, 5 years, 6 years before that, 7 years before that, we had rolled out this pay at your stall, credit card reader at the parking stall. The physical rollout of that seemed to go pretty well. Certainly the customer usage of it went extremely well. Did that play into your perspective at all about the either the potential of doing it or the benefit of doing it, willingness to then engage more broadly once we set up TAC?
Absolutely, because when we rolled out pays, it was a game changer. It was a game changer for the consumer. It was also a game changer for us because it allowed us to be something that probably the only people that had anything like that was maybe gas stations at the time. So it really put us at a top level. And it was one of the initiatives that I can say over and over again, it was one of the main initiatives that also paid for itself rapidly. I mean, it was probably paid for itself much more rapidly than anything else because the credit card sales went crazy. And so, yeah, it absolutely gave us a little bit comfort knowing that had already happened and that was technology. So, yes, sir.
So your comment about credit card sales went crazy, that's using crazy in the best sense of the word, I assume.
Yes, sir. Crazy and crazy good. So the increases were amazing.
Yeah, crazy good. Yeah, I remember average check was up like 40%. And then, of course, the usage, it was just so convenient for people. That was a great innovation, And you're right. The pickup was from folks in the service station business. That had become such a big part of the business. And so the convenience was so great. It was like, well, we could do the same thing. Sometime around that time, 08, 9, 10, as we, and I had to say, just to make it clear a little bit more, I started talking to our franchise leadership at times and even kind of showing some visuals, et cetera, on before Craig came on board, what I was referring to as a techno oval. But this idea that we could integrate these different elements and get a benefit from integrating them, get a benefit to you, the operator, us, the franchisor, benefit to the customer. One, in terms of the integration of those and literally that kind of techno-oval discussion, one, does that ring a bell for you? And two, do you have any recollection of what your initial reactions were to that at the time, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, yeah, that definitely rings a bell. I remember when you started talking about that, and it almost seemed like, Cliff, to be honest, in the beginning, it seemed like far-fetched. It was something that was way out there, that it was going to take a lot of work, which it did, but it didn't take a whole lot of work from the operator standpoint or the franchise. I mean, you guys did all the work back behind the scenes and shared it with us and allowed us to benefit. It just seemed like one of those things that, oh, it sounds great. It sounds like, oh, yeah, it'll be great if it works. Still having a little doubt whether it would. But as you progress down the path and put the people and the teams in place, it absolutely did come to life. And I mean, it's where we are today. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say it's where you are today. One of the things that frustrated me about change of control of the company in 18 going into 19 was not being present to enjoy, the implementation and the impact and so on. But that's life. So it's a great thing that the brand got the benefit of it, and you all have that as operators, owners, and operators now. So more power to you for putting up with my far-fetched pitch, 15 years ago. So if I didn't say thanks then, I'll say thanks now for letting me show you my little designs on the PowerPoint screen there. One of the things that thinking about our change and the change in the digital plumbing, and that infrastructure that we had to work through. One of the biggest challenges that Craig and I have talked about often had to do with the historical provider, the POS technology that was in place, just to call it out by name to make it clear, but the company Automatic that had point of sale systems that we considered to be antiquated. They were sufficient as an order taking system, kind of, and but I'm not sure what else beyond that. Any observation as to? I would ask you in your particular, in Procure system as a scaled operator, how that order taking system worked then, and the whole Automatic thing, and what the systems do for you today. I understand you talked about earlier about food controls and I'm sure labor controls, et cetera. But any perspective today about Automatic that once that transition occurred, you've begun operating in this new era and with new digital plumbing? Any observation about that old relationship, how they managed us, how they looked at us, what their service model was? Any observations today for that old piece?
Yeah, I think you probably nailed it when you said antiquated. I think that the company at one point in time met the needs of what Sonic was years ago as an order taker. But as you continued to grow and technology became a lot bigger part of the fiber of the world, it never kept up. And I think the problem with it is it wasn't innovative at all. It kept trying to do the same thing that it had done for the first 50 years in the Sonic brand. And that got us to where we are, but it was never going to get us to the level that the brand needed to be. And I don't think their leadership looked for innovation. They looked at how they could keep what they were doing and keep it going the way it was. They didn't really look at the PC-based or computer-based module, which in today's world, you're way behind if you're not there. And even back when you started to move that direction, to be honest, we were behind at the time compared to other quick service restaurants because of Automatic, and we were stuck on that one system. It took a while. I think Craig would agree. It took a little while to find the right fix for that because of the unique delivery system that Sonic has is a little different than any place else. And so, and that's what Automatic was probably really good at in the beginning. But it was not very good with back of the house or helping you manage at all.
Right. Thank you for that perspective. The extension of that then, as you and Craig and the team started looking at possible new point of sale vendor selection, and then the whole testing implementation process, much less than the kind of the retrofitting that had to occur at the unit level in order to implement everything. Any recollections on that as we moved into the process of vendor selection and so on? Any recollections that you have that a listener of who may be involved in another brand and may need to go through a similar process? Any thoughts that over the years have come to your mind about that process and how we might have done it differently, or how you view it today versus then?
Yeah, I think the big thing, if you're going to go through that, Cliff, I think where Sonic did a good job. It's not because I was on the committee, but Sonic created a committee of franchisees and other stakeholders, not just from the corporate level. They had plenty of people from the corporate level on there to help guide us. But I think it's important to have the field or the franchisees buy in and walk through the process, because I think anybody that was on, or everybody that was on that TAC committee learned a lot during the process of what to look for, what was there. I think the collaboration that we had was good. And again, we had to be led. Craig and his team helped lead us through the steps that we didn't know anything about, to be honest, at times. But we were there stating the facts that we had from an operator, from our standpoint in management, and there was a leadership team there that helped guide us along the way and not only answer those questions, but when we were going off track, help bring us back to what the goal was. And I think that was the good part. I think that's the reason the TAC committee worked so well, is because it had a great balance of corporate people that knew the end game better than the franchisees did, but the franchisee was there to help put out the things that were very concerning to us as operators and the drive-ins each and every day. So I would just encourage anybody that's going down that path to have a good collaborative team of both sides, or numerous sides, not just one side corporate or one side franchisee. You need both.
Great. That's great advice. I'm sure helpful to anybody listening that may be contemplating that. As we implemented, you were talking about where the work was done. I mean, we went through enormous investment within our company to be able to integrate all of this. The individual operator, like you, went through the expense of implementing a point of sale system in the store in order to run the store. We also had, as part of that digital circle, the point that engaged the customer more than ever. One was the screen in the parking stall that we referred to as POPs, point of personalized service. Ultimately, more importantly, in terms of interface with the consumer, we, of course, developed the mobile app, which we rolled out in 2018. I'd be curious, given your awareness of the brand before, your participation in the rollout at the time, and then, of course, the operation of the brand for the last 4 and 5 years since the company changed hands, ownership changed hands. what your perception is now of that mobile app, maybe what it was at the time when we talked about rolling it out, and then the initial testing. I remember it was one of Ted Kurgan's markets that we did the initial rollout in 18, and it worked pretty beautifully. What's your recollection of that time before, during, and after?
Yeah, I think it's back to, when you were selling this whole big picture, Cliff, and I said it was far-fetched. I think the further we got into it, the less far-fetched it seemed. And we were excited about the digital app. I was excited. I still had some questions and still had a little bit of animosity. Like, I'm not sure this is going to work the way they say it's going to work. And there was, as anything, as you roll out something new, there was a few bumps in the road. But, over time, and it was pretty short order, all of a sudden we were getting these orders in, and we were saving the time of not having to take the order. It was already there. We were able to take care of our guests a lot better, a lot faster. So the process, again, it didn't go without a hitch. You don't roll out anything without a hitch. I mean, Apple rolls out a new software and then they have fixes right behind it. So nothing goes technology-wise without a hitch. But it was pretty smooth overall. And what was good is we continued to look at the problems and correct it and continue to grow that app, not only in the sales that we get and the guests that we receive from it, but the functionality that it has. So it went from a very infant stage that when we first rolled it to a much more dynamic thing today than I probably ever thought it would have gotten to, but it's pretty amazing. And it's just like any technology. You better continue to upgrade and move forward with it, or you're going to get left behind.
Any idea offhand what percentage of your sales or percentage of transactions come through the book?
Ours, I mean, it's north of 20.
Okay.
Both of those, both on the sales and the transactions. Probably transactions a little higher than the sales.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's a universal sort of read. And well, that is a big number. I hear you saying that it's easier. You don't have to take the order. The customer can do it off premises or on premises. Convenience for the customer and the speed. I'm assuming that you also have some experience with fewer mistakes in the order itself, since you don't have the human element in taking the order.
We do. And it's amazing when you talk to some of the guests on lot. We just reopened a store in Canton, Texas. And there, I was out there and visiting some of the guests. A lot of people will actually use that app sitting there on the lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how many people just don't want to have the communication. They want to place their order themselves, and they're doing it sitting right there at a stall and place the order. So
that always kind of tickles me, but it's their version of convenience, so that's fine.
Yep. It gives them the ability to do it the way they want to do it. That's what's great about it.
Right.
They're not forced to talk to somebody at a drive-through or talk to somebody at a counter. They can do it without doing that until their order is delivered.
Any quantifiable sense? Of course, you're talking about 20+% of sales. Your comments that were so positive to read in the article in the Financial Times and elsewhere, that this had helped you not only from a margin control, cost control standpoint, labor and food, but that it had also helped from the standpoint, I think from your viewpoint, that it helped with higher tickets and of course, then with the execution, as you've already mentioned. Do you think either of these has played a role in driving top line? Clearly it has, in controlling the dollars that come in and get you better returns. But what about in driving top line in the first place? You have a sense of that?
I think so, because, the majority of the people that are using the apps are a loyal guest anyway. So they're ones that come to us quite regularly, and being able to send those people the specials and even ahead of time, letting them be a part of anything new coming out. I think that has increased our sales and increased people even that were steady Sonic users. I think they're coming to us more often because of the benefits that they get. Again, there's not a rewards program per se, but it's like they're first to know when something's coming out. They also get discounts on some of the first things that are coming out. So I do believe it's driving those people back more often. And as we get more users in there, I think they become more loyal users once they get used to the app.
Right.
And it's amazing. There was some thought even in my own mind, because I'm much more mature today, not older, just more mature. But there was some doubt in my mind that people my age or more would really use the app that much. And I rarely go to our Sonics without using the app. And it's just like, it's so convenient. So I was wrong on that one. Again, it's just like, there's no age barrier there.
I have to say the same thing's true of me. I don't know when the last time I ordered conventionally at a Sonic. I always use the app. So I hear exactly what you're saying. Much discussion amongst the group about the extension of this kind of digital ecosystem, if I can use that term, about use of it more in marketing, social media, web or mobile marketing. Is that something on the horizon for you guys?
Oh, yeah. I think, Cliff, I think that we are constantly talking about what the next step is to continue to grow the digital platform. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's just digital, meaning not just the app, but, online ordering, which you have today. I mean, everything that we can do to continue to look at how you can integrate the social in any platform we're looking at all those options.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fascinating to see that play out. And what about someone like you and your group and the D.L. Rogers group? I mean, you've got to be a organization, $500 million in revenues and perhaps more. I'm assuming. So my other question, of course, about the getting into the micro on the usage of this infrastructure. What about then the management of your business with the scale that it is now? Has your job changed over the years because of that and because of these tools?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yes. With the POS system, it helps a lot. I mean, I get a report every day now that is immediately. I have an IT guy here in the office that he set it up, so we get what you probably recall as the flash report, and it's so massive with our stores. But I have an IT guy here internally that actually pulls out the top 25 and bottom 25 stores in several categories, and I can manage that so much easier now and understand where our great stores are and where our stores that are struggling are with ticket count, whether it's labor, any of that stuff. He pulls out and gives me a top 25, bottom 25 every day in several categories. So it makes my life a lot easier to identify our great performers and our struggling ones. And sometimes they're struggle for one day and you don't see them on there for a long term, but it sure makes life a lot easier to understand it on 269 stores versus what we used to do. Used to, it was a phone call and said, "How's everything going today?" Yeah,
well, that's radically different. Well, this has been an interesting conversation, and Craig and I have enjoyed and appreciated the understanding and hearing about the benefits of your engagement in all of this over the years. You were a critical player from the standpoint of the development, testing, implementation. So it's entirely appropriate that you now get the benefit of that. So we certainly appreciate it at the time, and it sounds like there's an opportunity for you all to appreciate that quote in many ways, including financially. So that's a great outcome. Craig, any observations or questions for James you might have?
You mentioned earlier kind of the importance of collaboration, and you and the TAC played a much larger role for me than just kind of collaborating and feedback. You helped kind of shape my thinking as the operators. You mentioned earlier in terms of the vision, and there were some questions and concerns about how this would, really pay for itself. You all helped me shape the way to think about how to make sure that this investment and that technology over time would absolutely drive the business and become a value. I don't know if you recall, but in the early days of testing, you and the other TAC members really invested in working through some of those issues that you referred to. For our listeners and other brands, that's such a critical aspect to have kind of early adopters like yourself who helped lead the brand and lead through some of those issues and work through those challenges before we scale it. I recall a number of times you and I having conversations about how to think about, really driving and enhancing not only what you just referred to in terms of analytics. I don't know if you recall one time where you were not getting that information yet, and you were asking for the kind of analytics that would help you run the business better. You also helped us work through a lot of the development and innovation to ensure that it was truly driving service times, truly driving the engagement at the drive-in level in those early days. Had you not played that role in that partnership, we wouldn't have achieved the success we did in that year now experiencing. So one, thank you, and just wanted to give you a lot more credit than just simple collaboration. And it's a critical part of any of these types of transformations for any brand going through the journey that we went through.
Thanks, Greg. I was blessed to be a part. For sure. I learned a lot.
Well, James, thanks so much for your time today. This has been very helpful to us, and I believe it'll also be helpful and interesting to our listeners. But the breadth of your experience in the industry, and in particular in these processes, they go back 15 years and more. You're really a critical observer, and not just an observer, but you are in a position of being a critical observer as to what the path was, what the life was to get things to where they are. So, our pleasure to be with you here today, and we hope things continue well for D.L. Rogers and you in the ongoing business developments, and we'll look forward to talking further along the way.
This has been Bricks and Clicks from Forbes Books. If you want to learn more about how traditional businesses can evolve, innovate, and lead with the 21st century customer and ever-changing market conditions, go to bricksandclicks.com and click on how to create your digital roadmap.